I'm going to run the meeting on Bud's behalf tonight. So I've got 4 topics to talk about, all fairly short. Does anyone else have a topic they want to cover tonight? All right, I'll jump into mine then. A couple of news items. Pat, a new version of Pat was released in the last 10 days or so. Pat is a Winlink, Winlink Express. Now, I won't call it a clone, but it does basically many of the things that Winlink Express does. It's an email client for Winlink, and it's primarily used by Linux users, but it runs on all operating systems, unlike Winlink Express, which is only on Windows. The latest version no longer requires the AX25 stack in Linux, which is makes things a lot cleaner for folks like me who build GUIs around it. It just makes things so much easier. And I did some experimenting with it, and the connection, the AFSK connection from PAT through Direwolf and then to remote station and RMS gateway behaves a little differently, and there's some error messages that are thrown when it doesn't use the AX25 stack, and I haven't dug into why that is. So I have not modified my my GUI programs yet. I have modified them, but I haven't released them yet because I'm not happy with these error messages I'm seeing. So I'm waiting for the bugs to be worked out before I make those changes in the GUI. The other thing is that Dave Reese has released a major upgrade to FLrig for those of you who use that program to use cat control of your rig. The previous version was 1.4.8. He has released 2.0, and I downloaded it and quickly checked it on my ICOM IC7100. It seems to work fine. But I guess my recommendation, even though it is available now, when you do an update on the Nexus, if you select FLrig, it will install the new version. I guess my own personal preference is, since it's such a new release, I would hold off a little bit and see if any bugs are uncovered and fixed. But up to you if you want to try it. Like I said, I've downloaded it. It seems to work fine on my ICOM IC7100.
I see an awful lot of traffic, about them fixing things that come up. I mean, he has an incredible cycle of releases. I mean, he is cranking out new stuff and fixes constantly.
Yep,
so
he is. I mentioned this earlier before the meeting started, but for those of you who are using my 710 program to control your Kenwood 710 and 71A, I'm in the process of making that work under Windows and on the Mac, and that's proving to be rather time consuming, much more so than I thought it would be. So, but anyway, I'm getting closer. I'm probably about 80% of the way there. And so you can look forward to that coming out. I will make binaries available for the Mac and for Windows, so you can just download them and just run them, without having to install Python. Especially the Raspberry Pi image that we all use already comes with Python installed, so there was no need to wrap it up into a binary on the Raspberry Pi platform, and that's true for most Linuxes. So you could download the current iteration of 710, and it will probably work fine on most flavors of Linux also already, without any modifications. Okay.
What version of Python are you using?
I'm using 3.9 on the Raspberry Pi,
Okay.
and my development is on a Mac, and I'm using 3.11 on the Macs, but I immediately test everything on 3.9 on the Raspberry Pi, and so far everything is working fine. I'm not using any of the new features in 3.11 Python, so everything should work there on the older versions. As long as it's Python 3, it should work. All right, next topic. I have mentioned in the past this little device here. This is a Digirig. This is a sound card, and I've talked about this a couple of times in this meeting here. It is a sound card that has a USB interface. It's a USB-C, can't tell if that's in focus or not, USB-C interface, which is the latest iteration of the USB protocol. So a cable
Is it
goes from
focused?
here. Yep. Yep. And
It's
so
good.
yeah. Okay. So the USB cable goes from here to your PC. And if you have a USB-C port on your PC, great. If you have the traditional USB-A ports, which are the kind of the narrow rectangular ports, that's fine too. You just get a cable that adapts from USB-A to USB-C. It's, it all works fine. On the other side of this device, there are two jacks. These are tip ring sleeve jacks. So there's one called audio and one called serial. Do I have it upside down? No, that's correct. One audio, the top one's audio and the bottom one is serial. And I've talked about the audio one in the past, but I haven't really addressed the serial portion. And that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. The audio portion exchanges the audio, the transmit and receive audio between the radio and this gadget, okay? And it also has push to talk in it. So basically, the cable that plugs in here looks like this. So one end has the tip ring sleeve, and the other end is our old friend, the mini DIN 6 connector that goes to the back of your radio. All right, so it's a simple cable like this. This is a cable that I actually bought from the Digirig company. They make extremely high quality cables. Almost all of them have ferrite beads on both sides. They're, I think, reasonably priced for the quality. So if you need cables, that's obviously the obvious source is to buy it from them. But getting back to the serial port here. So what is on the Digirig Mobile site is that you can use this serial port for CAT control of your radio. So with one USB connection from this device to your PC, you have audio control, audio in and out, push to talk, and CAT control if you have a radio that can be CAT controlled. Now, I've been experimenting with this, and I could not get this serial port to work with either the Kenwood TM71 or the 710. And so I went to the website for Digirig, and there was already a conversation going on about which cable to use for CAT control of these radios. And I got involved in that discussion, and we arrived at the conclusion, based on some testing that I did, that the cable that he currently has available advertised for the TMV71 or the 710 doesn't work. Okay, so, but he's on the job. He's about to release a new iteration of a new cable, and that is imminent. And I don't know how many people bought his old cable, but he's going to honor replacing those cables. The issue is that I'm going to share my screen now, and I've posted these. I've got two tabs open in my browser, and I'm going to share my browser screen here. And I've posted links to these the two browser tabs that I have open in chat, so you can see what you can bring this up at home if you want to. This is the Digirig homepage, and it describes his latest iteration of the Digirig card. And I just wanted to go through a couple things with you. So the way that he controls push to talk is he presents a serial port to the PC or the Raspberry Pi or whatever computer you have. He presents a serial port to it. And by activating request to send, which is one of the standard lines in a serial connection, it activates push to talk. So you assert RTS and it shorts push to talk to ground, which activates it. And when you deactivate RTS, it releases push to talk. And that's all well and good. That's, you know, a relatively common way to do push to talk. However, if you have a radio with cat control, and that radio requires request to send in order to operate cat, that's not going to work with this device because he's removed request to send and is using it to activate push to talk. So this is what prompted my discussion with him about this. And I'm going to show you his schematic here. Another thing I like about this product is that he has complete schematics for not only the Digirig device itself, but all the cables he makes. He makes it all available. I prefer to make my own cables, so this is really nice that he has all the specs here. So this Digirig device is composed of 3 parts. Inside this little box is a USB hub. And also inside this box is a USB codec, an audio codec here, and a UART, which is a serial interface. So this USB hub basically is just a bridge that connects 2 different USB devices, one being an audio codec and one being the UART for serial connection. So you can see that in the UART part of the circuitry here, where this request to send RTS, this is actually tapped here and is used over here in the audio codec part down here to trigger a transistor which causes the activation of push to talk. It's actually 2 transistors here, one driving another. And then you see this is the TRRS jack here. So push to talk has been rewired to activate push to talk. Or I'm sorry, request to send has been removed from the normal UART circuitry and is used to activate push to talk. That's fine, except if you have a Kenwood radio that requires request to send in order to use CAT. So I got involved with a discussion that was ongoing here where somebody asked earlier about the pinout of the cables that he was sending. And what he did is he excerpted a page from the Kenwood manual here. And his original cable, he thought, was identical to the Yaesu cable. And so he was selling this one cable for both Yaesu radios and for Kenwood. But what we came to find out is that the Yaesu radio doesn't need to use request to send and clear to send as part of the handshaking, but the Kenwood cable does. So I jumped into the discussion, and there's a link to this in case you're interested. As I jumped into this discussion, if you want to read this, there's a link to it in the chat. And I told him I was confused about this pinout because it didn't make sense. It made sense for a Yaesu, but it didn't make sense for a Kenwood. Some of the pins were different, it was wrong. And he said, oh, yeah, you're looking at the wrong cable. He actually has this cable for the TMV71A, which also works with the 710. But he didn't have a schematic for this cable. So I asked him, can you give me your schematic for your cable? And he did, and he gave me this, okay, which was pinned correctly, but didn't have any connections for request to send and clear to send. So I said, all right, this is the cable I had made based on reverse engineering, what he needed. So I made a cable like this. And as soon as I got his schematic, I checked it and said, yep, sure enough, it's the same as his schematic. And it wouldn't work for cat control. In fact, as soon as I plugged it into my computer, push to talk would activate. And the radio would transmit, and it would stay transmitting. So obviously something was wrong there. And so I did some more experimenting, and then I discovered that if I looped back request to send to clear to send to the radio, it fools the radio into thinking that it's always okay to transmit. I'm sorry, it's always okay to send cat data and receive cat data, not to transmit. And then I went into my software and turned off request to send, and everything worked. I was able to activate push to talk in the normal way by using request to send, and I was able to control the radio, specifically the Python script I wrote to control the 71A, by looping back request to send to clear to send back towards the radio. So this is what I mentioned to him here. And he said, thanks for the information. I'll recheck to see if there's a loopback in the store cables and add one if it's not there. And this guy chimed in and said that if you use the quote incorrect cable that he's currently selling and plug it into the head of a 710, which has a built-in TNC, it will work in sysop mode, for those of you familiar with TNCs. So some kind of craziness. Kenwood doesn't require request to send to operate the TNC that's built into the 710, but they do require it for cat control. And then some other folks chimed in, and finally the author said, he asked if any of you who have this cable already, would you take an ohm meter and see if these pins are looped back? And he got one response from one guy who was using it and said, nope, they're not. They're not looped back. And he said, okay, now I've got a problem. I've got to do this cable over again and send these out. So then he found newer notes that he had done for the 710 cable that do show that request to send and clear to send are looped back here, which is exactly what you need. And they're looped back to the radio. So he does have the right information now. And some other people have chimed in, well, no wonder I can't get cat control on my 71 or my 710. So anyway, if you are interested in this product, which I still highly recommend, this is a tremendously great deal. It's $49.99 for this. If you buy cables from him, you're probably looking at still under $100 for this and the cables you need, compared to even a Signal Link, which is $140, I believe, right now. Anyway, but if you're interested in using this with a Kenwood 71 or 710, hold off. Don't buy his current cable. I'll post something on the digital group, groups.io, when his corrected cables are available. Or if you're interested, I can share the schematic that I did for my own cable that I built. So anyway, I've been recommending this to especially folks who are using Windows and who don't already own a Signal Link. This is a really nice product. The other thing that this thing can do is that when you specify the when you order this, there's some options as to how you want the serial port configured. You can configure it as an RS-232 interface or a CAT with logic level interfaces, which some radios use, specifically Yaesu and Xiegu. Or you can use an ICOM. This is for the Electcraft and Kenwood. This is RS-232, which is the configuration I did. Or ICOM's complex CIV. And he provides information on how to cut traces and do some soldering on the board to get whatever mode you need. Or if you know ahead of time, you can just order it and he will already have all that set up for you. He'll either make the cuts or the soldering or both, depending on what your needs are. I got the base model and then did the soldering myself because I wanted to convert it to RS-232. So it's very flexible. It also has an attenuator in it, which I found I needed to cut. I needed to add because the signal levels through this into the PC are too hot. They're much too high. So by cutting a trace on this board, it introduces a resistor into the circuitry and attenuates it by about 20 dB, which is just about perfect. Then I can use also Mixer Linux or the sound control in Windows to get the right audio levels. So I know it's kind of a long-winded, probably too much technical detail on that, but I wanted to let folks know that great product. Don't buy the cable yet if you want to use this with a Kenwood UHF VHF radio. Any questions on that? Okay. All right, that is all I had this evening. Anybody have anything else?
Nope.
Okay, wow, short meeting then. I guess we've been going officially for only about half an hour. All right, last call. Anything else?
Mhm.
All right, I guess I'll wrap it up then. Thanks all, and we'll
Adios.
see you next month. I'm going to stop the recording here.